Play-to-earn games like Axie Infinity and Million on Mars are shaking up the gaming world. In play-to-earn games, players can earn tokens that can eventually be converted into real-world dollars, hence all the excitement. But of course, a game that only serves as a way to earn money can easily become more like a job. So here's the challenge. How can you create a play-to-earn game that's truly fun to play while making sure that the economy doesn't spin out of control? Let's check in with gaming economy expert Mitch Zamara and check out the 7 design tips he used while putting together the economy for the play-to-earn game Million on Mars. Make sure to stay to the end to learn about a common online gaming problem that can easily tank your entire economy.
Back in 2009, free-to-play was making its transition from being largely part of the MMO space into sort of a more open-ended idea for just games in general. And we started to see the emergence of social games on Facebook and on MySpace. And I got a job at a company called Zynga back then, which was just a small little startup, back in 2009 that just had a couple hundred employees. And it was a fresh new time in which anything was possible. There was very few rules. There was no real playbook for how to do anything. And we got to be really, really open and creative about how we did everything, really, and how we grew the products and the games that we worked on. And now, over a decade later, we're at the start of Play to Earn, really taking off, being in its very early infancy. And I have deja vu almost every week where I'm just remembering things that I did a decade ago, remembering things that people say now that I'm like, I've heard that before, I've heard this before. History repeats itself. That cliche adage really is true. In the blockchain play-to-earn space were largely developed by crypto natives, not by game development natives, meaning that it's experienced people that understand blockchain, but not as much people that have experience building games. I think the way that you do it right is that you focus on delivering a great game first, not delivering profits to your token holders or your asset holders. If you decouple yourself from that responsibility, I think you stand a greater chance to succeed. And so what I mean by this is, like with our game, we have a token inside of the game which you earn by playing the game. I call it a participatory inflationary token, which is a big fancy word of just saying it's like virtual gold inside of any other free-to-play game. You earn it by playing the game, really. We have a ridiculous supply of it. It's like 1 trillion, and that's really designed because you have to pick a number. But the thinking behind this is that my goal is to design and ensure that there is enough use for Dusk inside of our game as a player, not to design how to make Dusk worth the most amount of money possible. And so to me, if I make it so that it has a lot of use and a lot of utility, then everybody wins because it gets used, it gets sunk out of the economy. It doesn't get largely inflated more than people are used to. And if it has a natural growth and a utility all along the way, the actual value should translate automatically. But it's not my actual priority. Also, our team doesn't actually own this token, meaning we don't take a percentage of it and hold that and drive value and then make that. Our end of the day goal is to make it have utility and to make it matter for our players, not to matter for our wallets. That, I think, is a really big sort of distinction, and it's how you can ensure you're able to walk that line more confidently. If you look at projects where they own 10 or 20% of the token that's also part of the gameplay, to me, they are much more incentivized to drive the token price than they are to drive the game value, sort of in the way in which publicly traded companies are more incentivized to sometimes manage and drive a stock price versus the actual customer value. It's sort of like before Amazon, where it was all about shareholder value, and then Amazon was the big sort of, we don't care about the stock price, we only care about customer value. That's the mindset I think that's necessary. The key is to find the happy medium that doesn't invite pure exploitation. Never talk about how much money-making potential your project has. That's a kiss of death. If you look at any interview, words I've written, I never once talk about it. I never will. That's a big one. And it's a red flag when I see a project do it.
In other words, all the NFT projects.
Some, but Axie's a game, Mirror's a game, Lost Relics is a game. They do exist, but things that are like, give us up to $80,000 now and there'll be a game that's in beta next year, I'm like, nope. Do you know what's going to happen in the next year? Because I don't, and I'm making the games that are live right now. There's no way I could ask for a dollar for today for a hamburger next year. I would just never do that. So trust is crucial to a successful economy. What do I recommend early on to build trust, especially when many NFT games ask you to invest now for future gameplay? Easy. Build a game first. That's what we did. We didn't take anyone's money until there was a game to play. Our founders token sale started the same day the game was playable, in which you could log in with that token and play the game for yourself, in which we could demonstrate visually to other players that there was an actual game experience here, and it wasn't promising for an actual experience a year from now and asking for a lot of money up front. That is something that I get upset about when other projects, especially from well-funded companies, are then trying to get money out of like pre-sales, pre-orders, or non-utility NFTs. That's how you start to ruin your trust relationship from the get-go. And if you have to sell ahead, don't sell big, sell small. You'll have to track them down, but there's a game called Ancient Realms. I think they did the best job of selling small in sort of recent history that I've watched. They're a very small indie team. They did pre-sell things, but they've been consistently delivering and communicating, and that's the really important part, is over-communicate, over-deliver, don't over-promise, and never, ever talk about money. To me, this is the digital extension of the gig economy. It's democratizing time, or it's decentralized time and effort, really. The gig economy was born out of this same desire to be able to really save as much time as possible. And so we saw this birth of startups like Uber and Lyft, and then followed by the TaskRabbits, and basically, well, Uber and Lyft took over all those sort of gigs as well when they realized that anyone driving a car could also move things around and help save people time. You know, people's relationship between time and money is going to be different depending on where you are in your career, in your life, and where you are in your position in the world, just as a matter of fact. And that relationship allows a degree of arbitrage between time and money that people are able to exchange in these environments. And so I think that's really what it comes down to. What's so special about crypto? Couldn't you just do this all on Facebook? Yeah, but it's the autonomy and the agency of owning what you've earned inside of the games that makes everything different. So if you've played Hearthstone for years in the way that I did, or me and my wife did, we spent thousands of dollars on Hearthstone packs and cards over the years, and that collection is worth nothing. I've invested a ton of money and a ton of time. We both grinded to become skilled players. My wife has multiple 500 portrait wins. Like, we invested insane amounts of time and effort, but at the end of the day, we get nothing for it. We don't own anything that we put into this. And if we had just been playing Magic the Gathering, the actual physical card game, we'd have a card collection that is worth money, that we could have been selling out of the season, and we could have got a return for our money and our time, in addition to the value and the good feelings of playing that game, you know, in any other way. That's the key difference, is that you earn and you own what you put into it, and you aren't just basically renting your digital assets from the developer. Because that's what free-to-play games basically do, is that you're buying rental licenses. So when we did like free drops and free giveaways as pre-marketing leading up to stuff, every single thing we dropped and we gave away had a use, at least once. Whether it was a promo, a giveaway, it could be deposited. Like, I didn't give away useless NFTs ever. And that's my personal rule, is I make everything matter. So then that way the most amount of people care about it. Does Axie have buying and selling between the experienced players, or is it still new player entry? It's definitely both. But it's all amongst the breeders that it mostly still happens. So there are metas that change within the game as the balance is evolving and they're moving into new spaces. The meta also evolves in the way that it does on any traditional like card battle game. So there's just going to be shifting metas between the seasons that are more popular. It just moves more slowly in Axie because there's a cost and there's an effort required to breeding, and it's not as predictable. In the same way, there's a shifting meta between the Pokemon TCG, the Magic the Gathering TCG. Like, deck styles, the battle styles that you compose when you're actually playing competitively, those metas have ripples on the entire market. So the reason why a Black Lotus is worth so much is because of how powerful that card is and how much you can wield with it in a competitive sense. The same thing is the case in Axie. The Axies with the best stats and the rarest traits that are part of the most powerful meta or command the most value. Free-to-play economies are hard. Play-to-earn economies are an order of magnitude above this. It's incredibly challenging to get the sources and sinks correctly, to understand or even estimate what your demand will be, to deal with an evolving and changing need on the player base and the marketplace and the ecosystems all changing in real time. It's very easy to create a source. It's much harder to create a good sink. And this is especially hard when there is value attached to a source. So if someone can earn something that you're creating a source for, whether it's a daily login bonus, whether it's do a task and earn a token, whether it's, complete these jobs and these missions with your basic things. If there isn't enough use for the actual things that they're getting, those sources will hyperinflate faster than you can realize. The biggest thing that I question or I wonder with Axie is like how long will it take them to add more sinks? The problem is that the only thing to spend your SLP on is breeding. I would add 100 ways to spend SLP to draw down the inflation, because there's hundreds of millions of SLP in circulation right now, and there's only one use: it's breeding. If you're a player and you have a bad hand on your draw, you can't spend SLP to mulligan your hand. You can't spend 5 SLP to get an extra round in your PvE match when you've lost to the boss and you want that extra try, like Candy Crush getting an extra life. That's sort of like how I tick, right? As an economy designer, as a game designer, is that's always what my goal is that, if there's a leaky faucet, it has to be turned off. It is truly important that you understand the actual desires and needs of your players, and that you create enough stressors that facilitate the use and consumption of those resources. What I mean by that is you need to be probably more aggressive and tighter in your tuning than you would normally be, specifically on the consumption side. You should also be probably more conservative on the creation side as well, but you need to be more vigilant on the consumption side, and you need to almost always not allow open-ended sources to exist. You need to have a cost, you need to have a limit in some way, or you risk that someone will just set up a computer or a bot or a script and they will run that 24/7 and get as much as they can for free. Or if you need it to be really driven home, they will create 100 or 1,000 instances of a script doing this, not just one, because they run parallel processing and they do these things to get maximum exploitation while the time exists. Like Mirror 4 had multiple millions of bots running in their game within 60 days. Multiple millions of instances of bots across all of their servers. Prepare for bots, prepare for abuse, prepare for exploitation. And this is top to bottom in your economy, is that you need to prepare for the worst, that people will try to take advantage of every single exploitation and way that you don't imagine. And that's why the first thing is about like watching your sinks, because it leads right into the second part.
Are Million on Mars workers able to take value out from the beginning?
We have a 2-week gateway for our game. We want to ensure that players are encouraged to spend their earnings and their tokens inside of the game first, and then basically make the choice later on. So we put in a mandatory gateway. It also allows us to catch bad behavior, bad actors, botters, all that other kind of stuff.
So, as you can see, designing an economy from scratch is hard work. We're so lucky to get to learn from experts like Mitch Zamara. Do you want to learn more about the Million on Mars play-to-earn economy? Check out this video. And if you're into game design, we've heard you loud and clear. Make sure you subscribe and hit that bell so that you don't miss a thing, because we're going to be publishing a lot more game design videos over the coming weeks. Here's to getting smarter together. I'll see you next week.